Steve Kerr and hot seat are two things that don't go together. But apparently around the world right now, bashing on Steve Kerr is the hot thing to do. Is his seat hot? On today's Locked On Dubs.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
Holy cannoli, this is crazy.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Charlie Walter with you, formerly at 95.7 The Game in San Francisco, also KPIX. I welcome in my co-host today. Right away, it's Dan Devone, a host on 95.7 The Game. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the best. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Find us wherever you stream your podcasts, and we are always on YouTube. So go ahead and give us the thumbs up if you think Dan is one of the most handsome sportscasters in all the world.
Oh, that's
Dan Devone. If we could get the 2 thumbs up, if you got a burner, go ahead and give us a thumbs up on the burner. On today's show, we're talking about Steve Kerr. What are the chances that a man with 9 rings could actually be on the hot seat? Is it one of the dumbest things that has ever come out of my mouth? We're discussing that. And also, as hypothetical season continues, we give our predictions. Who mans up the starting 5 for the Golden State Warriors? But Dan, I welcome you in. Thank you for coming on, because these shows are very, very tough to do solo. Even during hypothetical season, where Bleacher Report comes out with a proposed trade every single day, and you can talk about, hey, today it's Kawhi Leonard potentially to the Warriors. But we're not going to do that. It is a tough time of the year, though, man. I feel like even Windhorse is taking a nap. You know, Rothstein's been sleeping since May. It's like at school. You got the 500-word essay. We're at 420 right now. How many times can we fit and, but, if? How slow can we talk just to get through the shows? But no, new guest, you give us the content always. How we doing, my man?
Good. Yeah, it's August. Unless you're going to break down Taipei and the United States and Little League World Series, Olympics are over, that ain't nothing happening. But I will get into the Warriors once again because – you know, I was fine. I got a show coming up in a couple of days at 95.7 The Game. And then my little boy, Chucky, just rings me up and chuckles. All I saw was Steve Kerr hot seat. And I'm like, oh, how many times do I got to take the kid under my wing, just bat him around a little bit? And then 30 minutes later, how many times have we played? I tell you what, crowd, Locked On Sports, say it with me. You're right, Dan. That's right. The most popular game show in America today. Tell him what he won, Johnny. Every single time
you win a new car. You're head of the Bahamas.
Lori Markkinen. Dan, Lori Markkinen. And now it's Steve Kerr's on a hot seat. And then, of course, when we're done.
I was never on the Lowry Markkinen train. You're thinking my wife, Kylan. And there's some breaking news for those podcast listeners. Yes, Kylan is indeed my wife.
We'll get into that. Oh, was that the scoop that wasn't supposed to get out?
No, it's all good. It's all good. And people are probably wondering, like, why does your background look so similar? We're in the same house. It's family-run business. But Steve Kerr, right, man.
Where you at?
Where we're at with Steve Kerr is 9 championships, and right now, seemingly the entire country, or at least the entire internet, turning on Steve Kerr right now. You have Draymond Green after he didn't play Jason Tatum and had some, I guess, questionable rotations in the Olympics, depending on who you are. Draymond called it a dumb decision. You have, was it Bob Cousy saying it's embarrassing? Dave Portnoy of Barstool saying that he'd be a janitor at Barstool if he didn't have Jordan.
It's Boston. It's Jason Tatum. Of course, that's the takeout of Beantown. But go ahead.
But Dan, 6th all-time in coaching with 4 titles, has the 5 as a player. When did the Steve Kerr hate become the norm? Is this something that you hear on the 95.7 The Game call line, or is this just a YouTube thing? Everybody hates Kerr apparently, and it's not just the opposition. It seems like it's some of the Warriors fans too are coming out and saying that, you know, it may be time for a change. Your thoughts?
I would jump on that bandwagon if there was any validity to it, but there's not. Listen, first of all, if you're going to ask me and start things by saying the internet hates Steve Kerr, well, the internet, is that where places people go where they're having heart palpitations or hemorrhoids? Let me get on the internet and find out how to self-help. I would not trust the internet in terms of dictating who should get fired or who should stay. Here's the thing. Steve Kerr is as good as he always was. Did he have issues? Was last year maybe one of the most difficult, one of the most challenging for Steve Kerr? I would say, yeah, you could put that up against some of his most tumultuous seasons as the head coach of the Golden State Warriors. Should he have played Jonathan Kaminga a lot more frequently? I think that even he will admit, yeah, maybe I was slow to the party in terms of recognizing what JK could do, the Moses Moody doghouse, and then playing him. I know a lot of people are Moses Moody fans, but this league has never changed. It's a players' league. There's 5 dudes on the floor. If you have stars, you'll be relevant, you'll be good. We know, and I've said this repeatedly, that the Golden State Warriors right now are descending on the backside of the mountain in terms of their relevance in NBA championships and being synonymous as being one of the best out in the Western Conference. Why? It's because people are getting old. Father Time is undefeated for a reason. Steph Curry, as good as he was in the Olympics, and we'll break down Steph. I love Steph. Doesn't get any better than him, but he's going to be 37, and Steph can't sustain that over 82 games. Draymond's 35. Clay's out the door. Why? I'm not going to sugar it for you. It's because he's too old at the end of the day. He lost a step, and therefore he became expendable and now plays out in Dallas. This is about the players. Steve Kerr does one thing as a coach, and you saw this reflected in what was a gold. Correct me if I'm wrong. They did win the gold medal, but we're still going to hammer the guy. But that's fair. Steve Kerr asked for buy-in. That's just buy into what it is that I'm doing, okay? And that's exactly what that United States team did. You don't think he talked to Jason Tatum beforehand? This is what he does, and told him there's a chance you're going to get DNP. He talks to every single one of those players, including Joel Embiid. It's not as though you wake up game day and he says, hey, man, I don't like the matchups. You're going to have to sit. No, all of this is discussed beforehand. Sometimes we have a hard time recognizing that there's an adult in the room, and all of the things that he's done, all of the things that he's achieved, it's because he has. And there's 3 key ingredients if you want to be a successful coach. First, it's the players, then it's the respect, and it's the buy-in. And he has all 3. I'm not ready to jump on Steve Kerr. If the Warriors suck or if they have problems next year, it'll be for one reason and one reason only. It's because they got Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, GP2, Kevon Looney, and a bunch of coconuts who can no longer do it as effectively as they once did.
It is crazy, all the Steve Kerr hate that comes out. Overall record, 519 and 274. That's pretty good. Won an NBA championship in 21-22 with a team that he was not expected to come close before the season and winning a championship with. Popovich is about to have his 5th straight losing season. And think about the hate that Greg Popovich gets. None. No one says fire Greg Popovich. He's still heralded as one of the greatest coaches ever. The Spurs have sucked for so long. The Warriors have won, 4 championships since Popovich has won his last? Greg Popovich, man, he's got to be coaching forever. Now he's got Wemby. He's got no more excuses.
Yeah.
Over under this year set at like 38.5, so they're supposed to be better. But what can happen this season in terms of Steve Kerr's hot seat? Because my take with it is I think he's riding off into the sunset with Curry. Their contracts coincide at the same time. That seems like the most likely thing. You reevaluate afterwards. I don't think any moves are made before then, unless all hell breaks loose. And by all hell breaking loose, it's essentially Steph Curry advocating that the Warriors may need a change. But, at some points, there are times where a new voice in the room is recommended, especially when you're kind of having a change into the guard. But with Steph Curry still in the lineup and still being as effective as he is, and the style still being the same, you would think that Kerr's not going anywhere. But hot seat, it's all relative. You got lukewarm, you got sit on a deck in Palo Alto in August warm, you got red hot sitting on a cast iron skillet that your sister put on the chair. Yow! That hot. And then, those are the levels of hot we got.
I think, to give you an NFL analogy, Mike McCarthy's on a hot seat. When you talk about Steve Kerr, listen, the only reason that this thing could get ugly, and this is the only thing that I think is sort of problematic, as he gets older, there's more of a disconnect with the younger players. You pointed out Popovich, there's Spoelstra, there's even Ty Lue, who's a little bit older but younger than those guys. So that isn't necessarily true across the board. But the only reason that I could see that there be some issues or the lack of a connective tissue is if the younger core, that being Pajemski, that being Moody, that being Jonathan Kaminga, that being Trace Jackson Davis, no longer find Steve Kerr, who was born in the 1960s, relatable. And suddenly JJ Redick is taking off for the Los Angeles Lakers, and he becomes the blueprint, the template by which all of the coaches are measured. Maybe that could have a poor reflection on Steve Kerr, that he's part of another era. I don't necessarily seeing that happen, but there's a chance that he becomes less relevant the older he gets. But again, there's buy-in. I think you're right. He and Steph Curry are sort of joined at the hip. Steph Curry's not going to call him out. That'll never happen. Those two they see basketball through the same lens. If there's going to be an issue, is that if this team struggles and maybe Jonathan Kaminga or somebody else pops off, that Steve Kerr is just a guy that, for lack of a better term, is too old for me to sort of relate to.
Coming up with Dan Devone, a bunch of hypothetical trades are out there right now. They've been proposed by the national writers. Would he entertain any of these things? Would they actually make the Warriors better? We discuss. I'm a big fan of sports, never want them to end, but unfortunately, there's just that time of the year where it's August and literally nothing is going on unless you want to watch the Little League World Series, like Dan said. The sports aren't sporting like I want them to, but FanDuel does let me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app. I can dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That is right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Dan, all I've done is throw out winners. Last pick I threw out was Scotty Scheffler plus 300 to win gold. We got this one for you. Anthony Edwards to win NBA MVP. He is 6th in the odds right now at plus 1,300. We will discuss that on the other side. Again, FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so Devone is back with me. Well, let's discuss this. Anthony Edwards to win NBA MVP at plus 1,300 odds. What do you think?
I like the numbers, and I would throw some coinage down, but it ain't happening. I think the one thing we learned from Ant-Man that was really evident here in the Olympics, as well as towards the end of the playoffs last year, is that he's still a young man. And while he can be dominant in the regular season, I love the dude's energy. I think you and I talked about him when he first came into the league. Like, keep an eye on this guy. His athleticism is ridiculous. But he's still going through that maturation process of learning how to close. And so when you talk about MVP, keep in mind in the NBA, it's the totality of your work. And if you looked at Ant-Man, you looked at Therese Halliburton, I know you love Indiana. The association with you and the Pacers just make no sense. But Therese Halliburton, same thing. When you're a young man, listen, it ain't February when you're trying to close in May against good teams out in the Eastern Conference Finals, or in the case of Ant-Man in the Western Conference Finals, and in the final 2 minutes when things are, those old butt cheeks get tight. It's those players that say, climb on board, I'll take you to the promised land. You saw that in the Olympics. It's like, where's Steph? I'm not ready for this yet. And same thing when it came to the NBA playoffs. So maybe a year or two away before I'm ready to talk MVP with this guy, but not yet.
All right, I won't give you any odds. I want to hear the pick without the odds, and then I'll tell you what you're getting. Doncic, Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Embiid, or Giannis. Who you taking for next year's MVP?
SGA
at plus 550 odds. That's third in the NBA MVP offseason, I guess, odds right now. So good for you. You got a plus 550 ticket on your hands. Back to Steve Kerr, man. He's got a ticket to the Hall of Fame when his career is done. Could he step down once the Steph Curry era is over? Is he someone that, bridges the gap into the next era, whatever that era consists of, whether it's Jonathan Kaminga as the face or someone that we don't even know exists, or at least exists in a potential Warriors uniform? Could he, that said player, be the next player out there? But there are fans that have been really upset with his rotations, that have been upset with Moses Moody not getting playing time years ago. We were having this discussion on 95.7 The Game, how the two-way guys, Ty Jerome and Anthony Lamb, were getting playing time over over Moses Moody. And people are still holding that against him, like still saying, it may be time to get rid of Steve, the whole Moses Moody thing. And then you hear this offseason, they were looking to potentially ship out Moses Moody. And that tells me all I need to know. The funniest thing to me is the faithful out there that says Mark Jackson and Luke Walton were winning with these teams, and specifically the Luke Walton one, because Jackson kind of got him to the cusp. But obviously Luke Walton won about 90% of his games with the Warriors team and did not look good in his other coaching stops. So people point to that and say, hey, it's not the coaching, it's all the players. And while that is kind of correct, it goes back to what you said earlier. Am I the only one out there that thinks coaching is so damn overrated? I mean, the best teams usually win. No, the only coach that we can point to is not having highly competitive teams to win a championship and got to a championship was Spoelstra. And people treat him like he's the second coming of God because of that.
I think there's some truth to that at the NBA level. But I do think that, look at Steve Nash. He took over a good Brooklyn team. You had Kevin Durant, you had Kyrie Irving. This is when Kyrie Irving was on his own planet and out of his mind. But there's nuance to it. You've got to be that guy that, again, where today's athlete has a level of respect for you. And that's not easy to do. And you don't go out and you don't just simply say, hey, I want your respect. It has to be earned. And how do you do that? Well, there's so many things that go into that cocktail. I think that there's definitely a skill set to being a successful head coach. I mean, Monty Williams was good with Phoenix. He goes to Detroit with a young basketball team, and he's terrible. There's a lot of young coaches that are relatable one day and then not the next. Steve Kerr has been able to sustain, and he's not an idiot. He recognizes that, if you look at the success of Popovich, or you look at the success of Steve Jackson, or excuse me, of Phil Jackson.
Phil.
You look at the success of Pat Riley. They know it's about Kobe and Shaq and Michael Jordan. They recognize what side their bread is buttered on, right? But there's also the ability to get those guys to buy in, to play at a certain level. And then also, once that worm turns, you sure as hell check out, because to your point, trying to take a young, not relative and or a good team and make them one of the top tier teams in the Western or the Eastern Conference, maybe Spo to a certain degree, although I would put a lot of that on Pat Riley, because there's a structure in place when you go to Miami. It's different than anywhere else in the NBA. You literally have to take a physical before you're invited to camp. But I think that this is still a players' league, but you need those players to buy in. And Steve Kerr has been one of the best at doing that.
One of the great things about this time of the year is that no one's actually a reporter, right? I told you that Windhorst has been taking a nap, which never happens. The news has not broken in ages, it feels like. There's nothing going on in the NBA, and the only things that you hear about in the NBA are when players sometimes get in trouble. Not pointing out any names. Coming up, Dan Devone gives us his starting five. And now, the point guard for the Golden State Warriors, it's Dan Devone. And we talk about some potential trades. This one was floated around yesterday on Bleacher Report. And I swear Bleacher Report has content going left and right because they have a million writers and they all have ideas. And they have that ESPN app in front of them where they can plug in contract numbers. And next thing you know, they're general managers for the next Mike Dunleavy. How about this one? The Blazers receive Andrew Wiggins and Moses Moody in a 3-team deal. The Blazers then dish Jeremy Grant to the Bucks. And the Warriors receive a 33-year-old Chris Middleton who's coming off ankle surgery on both of his ankles. Do you like that potential hypothetical trade during hypothetical season?
No. Well, what's Chris Middleton going to give you at this stage? You give me Chris Middleton 2 years ago when he was a good two-way player. He's broken, man. All you had to do was watch the Milwaukee Bucks in the latter part of last year. Chris Middleton fell off a cliff. He ain't that guy anymore. And now you're going to tell me with two bad wheels I'm going to take this guy? No. And if you're looking for a difference maker, if you're looking to unload contracts, I don't know. Maybe it makes sense you get rid of Wiggins off the books. If you're trying to unload money, that's an entirely different conversation. But if you're telling me that he's going to make you better, no, I'm not down with that.
How about this one? Because there are talks that Jonathan Kaminga wants $30 million as a starting point. Let's ask you the question right out of the gate. If Jonathan Kaminga demanded that money today, and obviously he's not demanding that money today, it's probably going to extend to next offseason, and then the Warriors will have some decisions to make, and they have the matching rights, so they could see what someone else potentially pays and then decide from there. But $30 million this second, let's say in a hypothetical world, Jonathan Kaminga has to go to another team if you don't give him said money. 4 years, $30 million. Let's go with $125 million or something along those lines. You paying him?
I am. And there's always risk involved, but I can't let him walk. And because he has the leverage, because if Steph Curry sits down in a basketball game, who the hell's scoring a basketball for me for the Golden State Warriors? I mean, Jonathan Kaminga now has the hammer. He's going to get paid. And Franz Wagner is sort of like the Justin Jefferson of the NFL in terms of blowing everything out of the water. That dude got, 40 per? He came in the same year and got the rookie max out there in Orlando. They clearly overpaid. The Magic don't know what the hell they're doing. And so that has thrown a wrench into things. I think a guy to keep an eye on is Josh Giddey. If Chicago gives Josh Giddey $30 million or more, Jonathan Kaminga on line 2 saying, hey, are you kidding me? Josh Giddey's getting 30 mil. Time to pay the guy from the Congo, my man. Like, the game's over. But right now, it was the same held true for Jordan Poole, that he had the leverage. Although there was one guy in San Francisco saying, don't do it. Meanwhile, there was Robin on line 2 telling me, Dan, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, because I was off on Jordan Poole well before everybody else, well before Draymond Green tried to knock him into next Tuesday. I was telling you there was something wrong with that guy, but he had the leverage. And the same holds true to a certain degree if you're talking about, it's not about worth, but it's about what it is in terms of status right now that you have to pay a guy, because he has full control. Answer this for me, and we'll get back to Jonathan Kaminga. Oh, there's a timeout on the court as 37-year-old Steph Curry needs to get his blankie and take a rest. That's going to happen, right? Who then? And let's just say Jonathan Kaminga comes out at the same time, or those two simultaneously can't sit on the bench together. Is that in the contract this year? Let's just say hypothetically they're on the bench getting a breather. Who scores the basketball for you this year for the Golden State Warriors?
I like Podziemski, but he's not going to be the guy scoring 25 points.
Yeah, I like Podziemski too, but if I'm a defense, I'm like,
Buddy
okay.
Hield is in spots, right? I like Buddy Hield to get open and have some games where he knocks down 7 threes, but I think there's other games he's going to be getting 5 minutes of playing time. Anderson's not piling up 20. Melton may have a few games here and there, but not many. Peyton, no. Looney, no. Wiggins averaged a career low 12 last year. It's hard to think he's going to bounce back and put up 25 a night. You're right. I'm not worried about the Warriors defense. It's the offense right now that is a little frightening. Like, who's going to put the ball in the bucket?
Well, you're hoping, I think, Jonathan Kaminga takes that. So, by the way, the last time I was on Locked On Sports, I happened to read on a flight the comments calling me a hater. Now, boys and girls, gather
They
around.
didn't call you a hater, Dan. They called you an idiot. They said you have some of the worst takes I've ever heard.
All right. Well, here you go, Locked On Sports. First of all, I'm born and raised in this city, okay? And so
he swims in the bay.
I live. Yeah, I don't go through a bridge or a tunnel to get to Warrior games. I catch a bus and go downtown. All right. Or actually, I won't take Muni. I'll take my rig and have it valet. But I'm there nevertheless. But when it's talking about sports in these parts, I'm from here. You take a butcher knife and stab me in the gut, it's going to come out, orange and black. That are the colors of the San Francisco Giants. Or crimson and gold. Hello, 49ers. No, these are my teams. And just like any other fan, maybe to my fault, we can sometimes be their biggest critic. So in terms of being a hater, come on, man. I've been in on this from day one. If you want to go back to the days of Joe Barry Carroll, which actually predates me, but I can have the conversation. So when I'm talking about the Golden State Warriors, it's not hating on this team, but it's more of an objective, realistic sort of take. But go ahead.
All right, so how about the Warriors starting 5? Because there were some people in the comments yesterday that when I pulled this one up, that's the wrong one. I pulled this one up with Curry as the point guard, Podziemski as your shooting guard, Wiggins at the small forward, Green at the power forward, and Jackson Davis at the center. And the only thing they said was Andrew Wiggins should not be in the starting lineup this upcoming season. I'm thinking, well, then who plays the 3? Do you switch up, and play positionless basketball? Is Jonathan Kaminga going to slot in that spot with Draymond Green and Trace Jackson Davis? Are you going to play Wiggins and Kaminga at the same time with Draymond at the small 5? What's going on with the Warriors lineup? If you were Steve Kerr today and you're in the locker room with the notepad in your hand or the dry erase and you're drawing up the lineup, who are the 5 you're throwing to the squad?
I like that 5. I think the reason why Wiggins wouldn't start if I'm the head coach is because his fate was sort of sealed when there was that unknown whether Draymond could play with Trace Jackson Davis. Remember, Draymond was out when Trace Jackson Davis began to emerge. And the question was, when Draymond comes back, what's it going to look like? And they took off. And when that relationship became symbiotic, and you could see that those two were on the same level in terms of defensive rotations and IQ. And as soon as Draymond gave him a pass as a rookie, because what he does is that he lessens the load of that at Draymond Green. Draymond doesn't have to watch Joker when he comes to town. That's a bit ridiculous. You're still undermanned with TJD, but Draymond now can play what he likes to do, and it's a little center field. He doesn't have to watch the other team's big. Trace Jackson Davis can do that. So, if Wiggins coming off the bench I don't think that's the worst thing in the world if he's a reclamation project, and hopefully he can return to where he was a couple of years back. As far as Podziemski, I'll let him start. Although going into camp, I'd be like, okay, Moody, it's yours, baby. Go get it. If Moses Moody, for all you Moody lovers, if he can be that big number 2 and shoot it and prove to me that he's worthy of that spot, I'm penciling in Brandon Podziemski. It's not in bold type. I'll still keep reservations, and I'll still allow some, for Moses Moody to turn my head the potential he could steal the spot.
Yeah, and Kaminga, it would seem like, has to find a way into the starting lineup. If we're talking about the Warriors being a legitimate title contender, not just a team that sneaks into the postseason.
What are we drinking now?
Dan, I said if it's hypothetical season. How many times do I have to tell you? It's August 14th. It's hypothetical season. It's not doom and gloom. It's a time where our hearts are full. We have clear eyes. We can't freaking lose. But if this team is going to be a contender, the 1% chance that they have, it's because Jonathan Kaminga is a stud. Jonathan Kaminga takes the leap, and not only is he someone, forget the stats, that could put up 20 points a game or whatever it may be, he crashes the glass, he gets offensive boards, he finishes, he can create his own shot, he can knock down the 17-footer, he could shoot at a 38% clip from 3. Like, all these different things happen. We're talking a different story. Warriors have another star with Steph Curry. It's a completely different ball game. I just don't think the majority of people think the 21-year-old is going to go from a good NBA player to a dazzling sensation, one of the new faces of the league overnight. I don't think many people think that's going to happen. But with the potential that he has, my point is you would have to think that he's going to be in the starting lineup this upcoming season. But the roster as a whole right now, man, forget just this season. Let's talk a little bit long term.
Let me back it up.
The Warriors in a good spot with the assets they have, and
good spot, championship assets.
Spot. Like, what do you think? Where they stand?
Starting 5. Come on, man. What are we doing? Let me just back this up.
Hypothetical season. What do you want to talk about, Dan? You want to talk about Kevon Looney's footwork?
I'll tell you what it is. God, I miss doing shows with you. I will tell you what's up with the Warriors. And I've said this repeatedly, and people don't like this when I say on 95.7 The Game. The Golden State Warriors are not going to championships. They're not going to win championships, and they're not going to the Western Conference Finals. Stranger things have happened. You're right. Kaminga, perfect storm. Who knows? Podziemski could be an all-star. But on paper, Steph Curry and company that's not going to happen. They're going to be competitive, and that's all Steph Curry really wants at the end of the day. Another conversation for another time. But with that being said, if you get under the cap, somehow you unload Wiggins and Draymond Green's contract, and you start anew. You identify the new core, younger players. Maybe Steph becomes the old man trying to lead the way. You get some you get some free agents that sort of surround these guys, and it begins to look as though you have the structure of a new frontier going forward. Maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years, and you'll be back. You'll be back in relevance. Here's what you don't want to be. Football season's kicking off, right? Anybody heard of the New York Jets? You want to know why franchises like the Jets suck? You want to know why the Knicks with Dolan before they got good for the last 35 years suck? It's because they make mistakes that when the wheels are coming off, that they try and correct things like, oh, let's sign Lauri Markkanen to a max deal, get rid of all our draft picks, and just get rid of the future and buy in on this guy or Paul George. I'll give you another analogy. The Los Angeles Rams were in a rebuild, right, for the last 2 years.
Dan, it got him a Super Bowl. I was there. It got him a Super Bowl.
They got a Super Bowl, and after that Super Bowl, right, Cooper Kupp gets hurt. You get the retirement of Aaron Donald. Things are going haywire. You lose Stafford's out with an injury, and you're like, oh, God, you know what? We're in a rebuild here. But the rebuild is back. They're a sexy pick to catch the Niners in the NFC West. My point is, Warrior fans, it's okay if you rebuild and you identify new players and you're back after a year. Don't be the Jets. Don't be a crappy franchise where you make a mistake now and all of a sudden it's 10, 20, 30 years like that of the Cleveland Browns before you're even mentioned as being a good team. That's why smart ownership, smart GMs know that, okay, we're not going to be very good, but we're not going to be terrible, but we'll be competitive to appease and keep the barbarians at the gate. Meanwhile, we will slowly reload. And then once again, with a new younger core who are under team control in terms of our finances, we'll be back after it. Don't be a crappy franchise and put yourself on the toilet for the next 2 decades.
Barbarians. What a word. What a word. Pitchforks. Pitchforks. All right. So Dan Devone breaks it down. Steve Kerr, nowhere near the hot seat. The headline was not clickbait, even during hypothetical season. I asked a question. Dan Devone gave us a good answer. Many people are going to disagree with you. I got to say that, Dan. It's a national.
That's fine. That's what I'm here for.
It's the end thing. Steve Kerr slander is in. It's hot right now.
Well, why? So tell me what it is. Because he didn't play Jonathan. Yeah, he didn't play Jonathan Kaminsky. But if you want to know why Steve Kerr is a good head coach, go look at why that team won a gold medal. Did you see everybody? Even though Jason Tatum didn't play, Therese Halliburton from Joel Embiid, those dudes all bought in from day one, and that's what Steve Kerr asked you to do. And he sits these guys down well before any of that happens and says, Jason Tatum, this is why you're not going to play. He's still a player's coach, man. Now, you got to come stronger than that. And listen, if he doesn't win, it's because that team doesn't have the players.
All right, Dan Devone, the 7-time Emmy winner. Did I get that right, or do we cut it in half?
It's 5, but I'll take 2 more.
The 5-time Emmy winner, and according to the Chronicle about 20 years ago, the sexiest man in showbiz, some said. I got a question for you, Dan. You ever had fried olives before? You're a fried olive guy?
Never had fried olives. No. What's going on there?
I just was down in Union Square a couple weeks back and had fried olives for the first time. It was good, man. Stuffed with some blue cheese. It was good stuff.
You know, I got to be honest with you. It's like, you spend time, the Super Bowl's in New Orleans. I've been out there for, in Louisiana for Super Bowls and big games, and they want to fry water. Like, why do we got to fry everything? It's an olive, man. Enjoy the black olive, or just, enjoy your mushrooms, your shrimp. Like, if you get fresh shrimp, like, there's no reason to fry that thing. A little olive oil, a little salt and pepper. My God, let the food. Do I have to teach you this? Get under my wing once again. And when we're done, by the way, every time we sign off, can you just do me a favor and end things like you always started things? We used to do our show by like, "You're right, Dan." Like, we should have an audience participation in unity saying, "You're right, Dan," every time I come on this show. But we don't need to fry everything. Let the food speak for itself.
The avuncular Dan Devone. You can catch him on 95.7 The Game. Appreciate you for coming on the show today. And about the fried food, quit being a coward, Dan. Have a great night, everyone.